Hey, deserving listeners, Ultimatum, Queer Love Season 2. Let's watch. Okay, so we see Kyle and Pilar coming home, and it's 12:30 at night, and there's a security camera that I presume and hope that they know is recording, and Kyle, or I don't know, one of them said sorry. I think Pilar said, "I'm sorry." Okay.
We went out dancing and she was trying to kiss me and I was like, I don't want to do that right now.
Okay. So they went out dancing. They're in public. It sounds within eyesight of others, and Pilar wants to kiss Kyle, and Kyle says, I don't want to do that right now. Okay.
And then when we were about to leave, she just walked up and started making out with me. I could have stopped her. I didn't, but I just didn't love how it went down. And it was just...
Yeesh. That sounds like non-consensual contact, the way that Kyle is. Let's rerun that.
And then when we were about to leave, she just walked up and started making out with me. I could have stopped her. I didn't.
Yeah. I could have stopped her. I didn't. Now, I don't know what Pilar would say. Maybe Pilar would say, no, we've been making out all the time, so I didn't think it was a problem, or it was misunderstanding. But it sounds, the way that Kyle is framing it, it sounds like Kyle made a boundary and about physical contact, and Pilar didn't abide, didn't respect it, which is, the violation might not be there for Kyle, but could be. There could be absolutely a violation there. Now, I will say, as a foundation to this event, the way that Pilar, I haven't been showing the clips, the way that Pilar and Kyle have been bonding, if you want to call it that, has been Pilar trying to mix it up a bit. Pilar is out there with verbal stuff, which there was nothing wrong with it. It was just a style. And I think Kyle is more of a, I don't know if it's shyness or scared or shut down or wasn't liking Pilar when they were actually spending more time together, sleeping together. Not having sex, but actually just sleeping in the same bed. So I wonder if Pilar has been frustrated and hurt and thought, let's try to get something going, and took it too far.
But I just didn't love how it went down, and it was just, a mistake.
Okay, so the way Kyle is framing it is a mistake. I think Kyle is saying, I don't blame Pilar. It was a mistake that she made. It was a mistake, but wasn't malicious or rapey. Now, I will say that contrary to the public discourse, as someone who has worked with couples with this exact situation, violations or rapiness or coercion, sexual coercion, physical contact coercion is something that happens a lot more than I think people want to admit. And although it can indicate absolute pathology and abuse, it doesn't always. I've worked with couples that have no abuse aspects. There's no abusiveness in the relationship. And yet, in all the, especially when alcohol is involved, in all the ins and outs, if you will, of sexuality and contact and making out and hands-on stuff, there can be violations. And our culture and the couples that I've worked with have no way of talking about it typically. And especially the person being accused of the coercive, violating behavior has no way of framing it for themselves, because in our culture, you're either a rapist or you're not. If you're being accused of anything akin to rape, then you're a rapist. Not only did you rape, but you are now a rapist forevermore. You always have been. You're a psychopathic a rapist. So I've had to spend many sessions trying to help couples talk about it. Everyone comes with a different sense of it, but generally speaking, everyone needs a lot of conversation. You can have a totally loving, secure, healthy relationship, especially over time, especially when alcohol is involved, like I said, and someone just gets a little too intense and they feel like they have the right to violate, and they're needy in some way, either emotionally or horniness or something, and they just push past, even though they know. There are scenarios in which boundaries are crossed and violations are committed mistakenly. The person doing the violating has no knowledge that the other person has the boundary because it was a misunderstanding or there wasn't enough communication. But I'm talking about scenarios where the violator absolutely knew that either there was a risk that their partner was going to feel violated, or absolutely knew that the partner would be violated. And often it's fueled by resentment, anger, frustration, that sort of thing. It's never, or in the scenarios that I'm thinking of, it's not because the person has an inherent need to violate. It's, in all of the communication and nonverbal communication, which is most communication between couples, meaning the way you say things and your facial expression and physical touch and that sort of thing. In all the communication, sometimes communication is occurring regarding anger and frustration and resentment and hey, I have needs too, that kind of thing. You aren't meeting my needs, so if you're not going to listen to my needs, I'm going to just take what I want, that kind of stuff. So it doesn't mean that the person is psychopathic or abusive. It happens, and it sounds like they're going to have a conversation about it, which is good.
I just wasn't comfortable making out, and then that did happen, and it was fine, it was fun, but I just don't want anyone to get hurt.
Okay, so I wonder what Kyle is referring to, because I was wondering if Kyle initially didn't want to make out in public because word would get out maybe that Kyle is not with Bridget, or that it would get back to Bridget. Maybe someone would film it or something, So I think that's what Kyle is referring to. So Kyle might not be saying, I don't want to make out with you. I want to make out with you, or I'm open to that, but I just don't want it to get I don't want it to get back to Bridget. Now, maybe Kyle is saying, I don't want anyone, I don't want Bridget to know of anything, even behind closed doors. So if we do make out, don't tell the cameras, they have all those cameras in them. Maybe they have some room there that, anyway.
Feel terrible about that.
Yeah, and I really don't want you to.
I did not come in here with the intention to light shit up, and this is a terrifying experience, and I just feel a lot of guilt.
Yeah, okay. So good conversation, and I'm still not clear as to what they're communicating exactly, but I think with Pilar saying, I did not come here to light shit up, I think meaning I did not come here to destroy your relationship with Bridget. I think that's what she's saying. And then she says she feels bad. It feels like everyone is like, why are you just okay with this?
Because it feels like everyone's why are you so okay with this?
No.
And I'm not.
I know you're not.
I think Pilar is responding either to Kyle or others who are at least giving the vibe that Pilar is moving too quickly. And there were some conversations between Kyle and Pilar kind of in that direction, because Kyle was more I think Kyle's just more standoffish in general. Kyle even said that the contrast between Kyle and Bridget is that Bridget is more out there and Kyle's more reserved. So I think that's probably the best word to put to is reserved. And then So Pilar is saying, everyone is accusing me that this is just so easy. Like, it's not a big deal that I'm now suddenly with another person and I'm no longer with Haley. Well, actually, it's reflecting that because, Haley and Pilar are particular. I think it's a record for this show to have a couple come here having been together for 10 years. And Haley and Pilar are essentially like high school sweethearts. And their first partner, their first lesbian, partner, right? That's what they said. It's like, I think Haley and Pilar, I'm not going to look at my notes from my memory, they both said it was the first woman they'd been with. And it's been 10 years. So the backdrop here is that Pilar has been indicating in a number of subtle and not so subtle ways that she, before getting married to Haley, feels like she needs to have a single lesbian experience, of dating and contrasting her experiences with other women, other relationships, maybe sexually as well, with Haley, because she doesn't know. She has one example to go off of regarding what a relationship could feel like and what maybe sex could feel like, or what making out in a club could feel. So Pilar is kind of going for it. It seems like Pilar, it is kind of interesting. It's like you can kind of get an idea of who, of the 12 women, how many of, which ones of them were really champing at the bit is the official, but it sounds funny, right? How many of them are eager to have a hall pass, and Pilar seems to really be like, yeah, okay, let's go.
I just feel stupid,
Why?
I'm like losing myself like in this, like more guilt. I'm like, am I not thinking of like Haley like enough? Like, what am I doing? Like, that's not what I'm here for, is to like forget her,
So this is just speculative, but I think Pilar was raring to go and really went for it with Kyle. And Kyle is reserved or might not even like Pilar. I don't know. And Pilar was really pursuing Kyle. And then it kind of has this crescendo, maybe with alcohol, likelihood with alcohol. And then Pilar is now like reevaluating. It's not working out with Kyle. I think Pilar is thinking, this, I have, how much more time do I have with this? I don't think we're good for each other. Maybe it's me, maybe it's her. I don't know. But she's not saying that, and it would make sense that Pilar wouldn't want to put that out there yet. So I think from that foundation, that's why Pilar is saying these things. That she's just like, did I make a mistake by even coming on the show? What am I doing here? The gears are turning. She's thinking, I don't want to because I think she's having a conversation with herself is the point. That's the way it seems to me. And I think when she had the hall pass, she's like, okay, I have a lot of, because just imagine, because Pilar and Haley didn't talk about their complaints about each other, but just imagine, any relationship after 10 years, you got complaints. At the very least, you have tendencies of your partner that you lament. And so I think Pilar was, like, okay, I want a hall pass because, God, I just want to get away from Haley and her, snoring or whatever. And so actually, was Haley the one that said she taped her mouth shut so she wouldn't snore? Which, yeah, I mean, you got to do what you got to do. I sleep on my side. That's what I do. Although Stacy says I don't snore very much. Not like her. Sorry, she doesn't. She does, but not a lot. Anyway, so for Pilar, I think she was in a mode of, oh, finally, I can get away from Haley. I can be with someone else. And, there's a big part of me that feels like I shouldn't be with Haley at all. I mean, it's too comfortable, or I've never been with anyone else. And then things go bad with Kyle, And then she's like, wait, was I underappreciating Haley? Because Kyle, like, it's way worse than it was with Haley. I just want to go back to Haley. And I think she's having that conversation. Let's rewind that.
More guilt. I'm like, am I not thinking of like Haley like enough? Like, what am I doing? Like, that's not what I'm here for, is to like forget her, you know? I'm trying not to.
Yeah, that's just my best guess, but it could be 1,000 other things. It's possible to tell.
Trying to embrace what this is and like be open. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I don't want you to feel stupid.
So just body language wise, they're on the couch and they're talking, and Pilar gets up, paces around. You know, some people do that. I do that. And then Kyle goes to Pilar to, I think, try to be comforting, but Kyle's not really saying much. She's saying reassuring things, which is great, but body language wise, she was approaching with warmth. But given their dynamic, I just don't think they're clicking. And so Pilar moves away. Now, maybe Pilar suddenly has to go to the bathroom. I don't know. But I think that kind of says something, maybe, that Pilar doesn't like Kyle anymore. It's like, this isn't working. And it's possible that Pilar in the previous night was like, we have no chemistry. We got to get this moving. So let's go dance. Let's have some drinks. And maybe Pilar has this previous experience, which would be strange because it would only be with Haley, of, well, you go dancing, you have some drinks, and it's, you know, it's romantic, and then you can get the spark going. I don't know. But, and so that was, from that point, desperate from there. You know, it was a desperate last-ditch effort to get something going, and then when Kyle says, no, I don't want to kiss you, and then Pilar is like, we've got to get something going, and then violates is a strong word, but doesn't respect her boundary. Now, it's also possible that Kyle wasn't clear of, I don't want to make out at all.
I just like don't know how to proceed, really.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, I think what Pilar is, where she's coming from right now is, I've seen nothing from Kyle. We've only seen what's in the edit, but there has been that reserved nature, which I think Pilar has been assuming was just her being shy, Kyle being shy. But there's the other possibility, which is that Kyle just isn't into Pilar, or just doesn't have it in her to be into Pilar or something. And so I think Kyle's reaction here isn't helping that, because if Kyle internally wants to preserve or start over, I think if Kyle were to reach out and have that kind of romantic warmth, you know, doesn't have to make out, but hold hands, eye contact, you know, I don't want to lose you as a trial marriage, you know, that kind of thing. That I think that's what Pilar is waiting for, because Pilar's been the one that's been trying to get kind of that stuff going. Maybe not in the right way. Maybe Pilar's been more playful. You know, I don't know if I mentioned this. Maybe I did, but that we have to remember that Pilar, this is essentially the second person she's dated, really, right? Pilar, she mentioned that she had been with men before, right? But in terms of with a woman, and, you know, 10 years of not dating anyone is something. So it's possible that Pilar is just all over the map, because she's like essentially a teenager developmentally, in that she just doesn't have a lot of experience with how to navigate this. But honestly, I just think that Kyle just doesn't present much opportunity for chemistry and vibe and spark. So if we think about it, like Kyle and Bridget working out, I think that the way that Bridget and Kyle have talked about it, I think Bridget was the one that got stuff going, but was maybe less sensitive to indications of reservedness. I don't know. All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, I want to remind you to seriously take care of yourself and ask for help, know your needs, put that out there. Consider other people's feelings, of course, but, assert yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.